Have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Marge Lauber, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from current issues of the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And the first one we're going to be reading from is April 8th, which is last Wednesday, I believe. And Gowanda is seeking to pursue the electric bus pilot program. So in Gowanda, with New York State's electric bus mandate still in place, the Gowanda Central School District is pursuing a pilot program to be ready for a future purchase of electric buses down the line. The district is preparing for the installation of electric bus chargers and design costs for the infrastructure to support 2 new electric buses. The infrastructure portion of the pilot will be included as part of the district's 26-27 school budget proposal. Based on discussions with engineers and architects involved with electric buses in recent weeks, the district has budgeted for the cost of 2 new electric bus chargers and installation after rebates, as well as the design itself. The district plans to propose the purchase of 2 electric buses at a later date, assuming the state's mandate remains in place. As it stands now, districts statewide will be prohibited from purchasing diesel buses starting on July 1st, 2027. Business Administrator Barb Smith said, "We're at least got it budgeted, and we can go from there. I think if we don't start moving forward with the pilot, we're going to have a harder time going to the state and saying, we can't do this at all." So the Board of Education approved its basic operating budget for the 26-27 school year at its latest meeting. So in other news, the local and the nation, this is as of Wednesday the 8th, Trump ups threats if a deal with Iran has reached. And you may have heard that on the news. President Trump threatened Tuesday that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran fails to meet his latest deadlines to strike a deal that includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz, with the Islamic Republic urged young people to form human chains around power plants and other potential targets. Well, so let's move on to other things. The Western New York Forward Fund announces grants for the common good. So the Western New York Forward Fund was a cooperative effort of local funders. It's announced its second grant opportunity with a call for expressions of interest, or EOI, from nonprofit organizations who are working to protect human rights and democracy and to expand civic engagement and activation. This focus on civic health is defined as strong connections between residents, robust relationships between people and public institutions, and positive attachments that people have to the places they live. So established and emerging nonprofit organizations focus on rapid response and building civic infrastructure throughout the 8 counties of Western New York. That's Niagara, Erie, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegheny, Wyoming, Genesee, and Orleans, and they're all invited to apply. So a total of $1 million is available to fund organizations over a 2-year period, with anticipated grants to be between $50,000 and $100,000 per organization per year. Funding can be used for general operating purposes, and simplified reporting will be required. So the EOI is a short online questionnaire, and then meeting with finalists will be held for discussions to learn more before final awards are determined. Parameters for the funding were developed based on input from organizations operating in the field. And we're going to go on to the next issue, which is April 9th. And Beth's Books on Planners agenda. The Fredonia Planning Board was important items on its agenda was Wednesday. Site plan review of proposed battery energy storage system and approval of an amended site plan for Brooks Memorial Hospital. Okay, so we had another teacher who retired from Gowanda. Another veteran teacher is set to retire from the Gwanda School District after this year comes to a close. Wendy Greco has submitted her retirement resignation effective June 30th. Greco, who's a Perrysburg resident, said in her letter of resignation, "Thank you for the opportunity to serve in the district for which I have been a community member for most of my life." Greco joins a list of retirees that includes Spanish teacher Barbara Dempsey, mathematics teacher Beth Robley, school psychologist Terry Reeves, and assistant principal Dave Smith, who was recently selected as assistant principal of the year by the School Administrators Association of New York State. Two more employees of the district recently submitted retirement resignation. That would be Cheryl Matron, who is a keyboard specialist, and George Rees, a bus driver and substitute school monitor. Matron will finish out the school year before retiring. Rees will retire effective April 15th, so they've already retired. Matron will also remain with the district as a substitute upon retirement, which is really nice. I did substitute teaching, and it's pretty good. So in Silver Creek, they have a law to exceed cap. Silver Creek, as the village crafts in 26-27 budget, costs are hovering right around the tax cap. As a result, the village board passed a local law authorizing a property tax levy in excess of the tax cap if necessary. Mayor Catherine Tampio said the village's preliminary 26-27 budget is currently just below the tax cap with 2 weeks left until the board expects to adopt the budget. Tampio hopes to reduce the total amount over the next 2 weeks, but in the event the village needs to surpass the tax levy limit, as defined by General Municipal Law Section 3-C, the village board passed a local law to give it the authority to do so. So many municipalities pass similar local laws each year to cover themselves in case the tax cap does not allow for enough of an increase to cover expenditures. Passing the local law does not mean the municipality will suppress the tax cap, just that it has the authority to suppress it if it's necessary. Yeah, we have some deaths to report here. In loving memory of Kaylin Stein. Kaylin Stein passed away on April 5th. And then legendary mountaineer Jim Whittaker, who was the first American to summit Mount Everest. He died at 97 years old. Wow. So our other news, Chamber to host 2026 State of the County address on Tuesday, April 21st. And I believe that was yesterday, so we're going to move on. Let's see what else we have here. In Raleigh, North Carolina, an Army veteran is charged with sharing classified details of an elite commando unit. So in Raleigh, an Army veteran has been charged with sharing classified information about an elite commando unit with a journalist, which one official said put the country, members of the U.S. military, and the nation's allies at risk. Courtney Williams, 40, of Wagram, North Carolina, is accused of violating federal law as well as municipal non-disclosure agreements by sharing details of her work with a special military unit at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Anyone divulging information they vow to protect to a reporter for publication is reckless, self-serving, and damaging our nation's national security, said Reed Davis, the FBI special agent in charge in North Carolina, said in the U.S. Justice Department news release. Williams swore an oath to safeguard our nation's secrets as an employee supporting a special military unit of the Army, which she allegedly betrayed, that oath, by sharing classified information with a media outlet and putting our nation, our warfighters, and our allies at risk. Roman Rozhevsky, an assistant director of the FBI's Counterintelligence and Espionage Division, he said that in a statement. And Williams, who is specifically charged with violating a provision of the Espionage Act, appeared Wednesday in Raleigh federal court, where a magistrate judge unsealed the case against her. Initially filed late last week, according to online court records, she was ordered held by the U.S. Marshal Service pending hearings set for early next week. A man who answered a phone and identified himself as a family member of Williams declined to comment on the charges on Wednesday. Although the reporter and unit are not named in the court filings, dates and details match an article and a book about the Army's secretive Delta Force written by Seth Harper. So Williams now is the focus of a 2025 political article with the headline, "My Life Became a Living Hell." One woman's career in Delta Force, the Army's most elite unit. It coincided with the release of Harp's book, The Fort Bragg Cartel, which alleges sexual harassment and discrimination. Wow. So in our community news, I don't think we have anything for this coming week. In Brockton, Portland seniors held their first meeting for 2029 on March 31st, and they had installation of new officers. So in other news, in the local region, historical series are commemorating Lucille Ball in a movie. It's called The Homecoming. So in Bemis Point, 70 years ago, on February night, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz brought the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to Jamestown with the premiere of their film Forever Darling. Local history buffs are commemorating one of the largest celebrations in Jamestown history once again this year, with the help of Ashley Sensky, collections manager for the National Comedy Center and Lucy Desi Museum. With an estimated 25,000 people having participated at the time, the two-day celebration of the movie's premiere has been remembered in books and more recently, several discussions, including one Wednesday at the Bemis Point Historical Society. Subsonic said the reason for the film coming into existence in the first place was to fulfill the two-film contract that Ball and Arnaz were under with MGM Studio Production. Sensky described the film as sort of rom-com. There are two characters that fall in love and get married, though with time the marriage begins to grow tired and stale, and in the end the couple is able to work and formulate repair in the marriage. The film would maintain that special touch of Ball's and Arnaz's style, even as the two brought on uncredited writers from I Love Lucy to give the film a bit more spice, according to Sensky. The homecoming event would be a celebration for the film that brought Ball and Arnaz back to Jamestown for a two-day-long movie premiere. The homecoming took place on February 6th and 7th, 1956. Sensky states that the celebration has been planned tirelessly in the months leading up to it, as coordination was needed for such a huge event. So it was no small thing that happened here. Just to even start, when they first arrived, they were taken a train and the train stopped in Buffalo. So from Buffalo, they were flown into Jamestown by helicopter, and they landed in the football field behind Jamestown High School, said Sensky. One of the cool things about that is that there are photos from the sky where you can see people had spelled out in the field, "Hi Lucy Desi," so that when they were landing, they could see it. So once Ball and Arnaz landed, there was a parade that escorted the two down the 3rd Street, heading toward the Hotel Jamestown, where the couple would stay. Sensky noted the incredible importance of the event to the area, especially considering that almost half of the Jamestown population at the time is believed to have attended. Sensky stated that kids got out of school early and that adults traveled from all around the country to come see the local celebrities. After partying until about 2 a.m. in the Hotel Jamestown Ballroom, Ball and Arnaz would resume again the next morning about 6 a.m. Not only would they see the couple visit Ball's childhood home in Celeron, but a second parade would also occur. The second parade would escort the two down the Palace Theater, now known as Raglina Center for the Arts, where the film would be screened twice for the general public to see. With this year making 70 years since the release of the film, Sensky wanted to do something special to commemorate such a significant piece of history. Sensky has been discussing the history of the film and historical significance of the homecoming to the area. If you're a curious person, the curiosity never stops. It only keeps getting bigger. There's always more mystery to unfold, and that's how I look at everything, said Sunsky. So if I could share a little bit about their story and make it a really deep local connection, such as how she chose to come back to Jamestown to remain her big movie, that would be really cool. And again, unfortunately, we have some obituaries. There is a Chad Pichkella of Fredonia, passed away on April 8th. Then there was a Sandra Kozarib, who was 79. She passed away peacefully on October 17th, 2025. And Mary Elizabeth Schweda Miller, passed away on November 18th. Then in other news in the local region, there's a fire closed the bakery until further notice. So Fredonia Bakery and Cafe has announced it is closed until further notice after a Thursday afternoon oven fire. Butterlow posted the sad news shortly after the fire on its official social media pages. We are so beyond grateful for the Fredonia Fire Department for the services that they provided to keep our staff and building safe during the unexpected fire, the post states. We are all safe and we appreciate all the support from the community as we move through this time. Butterlow's post concluded that we will be back soon. The Village Fire Department reported that they responded to the fire at the 31 East Main Street business at 4:56 p.m. Thursday. The fire was contained to the oven with minor heat damage to the immediate area, the fire department stated. There were no injuries reported, and the Fredonia Fire Department was assisted by the Dunkirk and East Town of Dunkirk Fire Departments, All-Star Ambulance, and the Fredonia Village Code Enforcement Office. Here, at Dunkirk High School, the class of 1986 has their 40th reunion. It'll be on Friday, July 3rd in the American Legion at 211 Central Avenue in Dunkirk from 3 to 11. Join us for a casual get-together and light snacks are served. There's also in Casadegua, you can join the Seymour Casadegua Library branch for story time and a colored popsicle stick flower pot craft at 11 a.m. This is a free family event that repeats the third Saturday of every month with a different theme and a different craft, and you don't need to RSVP. Let's see what else we have. Immunity Bio must spend a minimum of $5 million annually in operating expenses from 26 to 28. Immunity Bio must start manufacturing operations in Dunkirk by December 31st, 28, and must have 100 employees. Geis also said Immunity Bio can purchase the Dunkirk facility for $1 on January 1st, 2029, if it has met its required obligations. Millian Tyler, who serves as the attorney for the Out County IDA, said the goal is for Immunity Bio to have 450 employees by the end of 2032. This is probably a more realistic program for them, he said. And Tyler noted that Immunity Bio has a tax payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the state and the county. The state's agreement is being adjusted, and Immunity Bio has requested the county adjust its pilot as well. There you go. And then there was a Holocaust Remembrance event. It's set at SUNY, State University of New York. Hillel, in cooperation with ODEI International Center Speaker Series, is hosting a Holocaust Remembrance event at SUNY Fredonia. The event is slated for Wednesday, it was yesterday, I'm sorry, at 5 p.m. in the Blue Lounge at the Williams Center. I hope some of you made it. I'm sorry that I brought that up now. There's some more obituaries here. And Thomas Fernand Sr. passed away on March 31st. Susan Kessler of Hamburg passed away on April 7th. And Christopher John Party passed away, let's see, it doesn't say, just recently, but it doesn't say what date it was, 2026. Martha Nowak, 85 of Perrysburg, passed away on March 14th. Robert Bukowski of Casadego, he was 82, passed away on April 3rd. Okay, there's an interesting article. 8 states and 3 time zones and a ton of history. So let's take a trip down Route 66 as it turns 100. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, if you ever plan to motor west, take the highway that's the best. This be the time. Route 66 turned 100 this year. The Mother Road, as author John Steinbeck dubbed it, has evolved over the years from an escape for poor farmers fleeing the devastating dust storms of the 30s to perhaps the quintessential American road trip that's still delivering kicks. Although there have been faster and more direct routes between the nation's second and third largest cities for some time, Route 66 neon still burns brightly, and its vintage signs beckon travelers to resort at motor lodges, classic diners, and roadside attractions. Each stop turns the wheel of the imagination, leaving the travelers to complete what life was like for the people and communities that have made the road hum over the years. So in Illinois, Chicago has long been one of the county's economic engines, with access to international waters and railroads that lead to other corners of the country. In the 1920s, Oklahoma businessman Cyrus Avery, known as the father of Route 66, knew it wouldn't be long before automobiles would dominate the transportation landscape, and the Windy City would be the perfect place to start the journey he envisioned. So a member of the Federal Highway Board appointed to map the U.S. highway system, Avery opted to go with the number 66. He knew those double digits were ripe for marketing and could be seared into the minds of motorists. So for some travelers, the journey is fueled more by the food than the scenery, and there's plenty to choose from. Slices of homemade pie, thick shakes, cheeseburgers, and an assortment of fried delights. The Cozy Dog Drive-In in Springfield, the Illinois capital, is one of the many diners that sprang up along Route 66, and its breaded hot dogs on a stick have stood the test of time. Third-generation owner Josh Ullmeyer says the recipe is a secret. While Meyer's grandfather, Ed, saw the concoction's potential as fast and convenient road food and developed a system for frying the dogs vertically. And then in Missouri, in Route 66, has its share of twists and turns, and it's no surprise that a highway famous for its quirky roadside attractions will cross the nation's most famous river and one of the most peculiar bridges known to modern engineering. As the road nears St. Louis, the mile-long, that's 1.6 kilometers long, chain of rocks bridge hovers more than 60 feet above the Mississippi River. Engineers eventually built a straighter, higher speed option, and a poor resale market spared the original bridge from the scrap heap. Today it's reserved for pedestrians and cyclists. Then in Kansas, the Sunflower State hosts only a short stretch of Route 66, but it packs a punch with the Canotech service station in Galena, a classic example of roadside fare. The station served as inspiration for the animated 2006 Pixar film Cars. And in Oklahoma, there's real danger for someone who traveled the road back, particularly black motorists passing through inhospitable and segregated areas during the Jim Crow era. The Green Book, a guide first published in 1936 by Victor Hugo Green, listed hotels, restaurants, and gas stations that would serve black customers. In Texas, there was a blink and you miss it, but a stop at the Cadillac Ranch in Armadillo is a must for any Route 66 journey. For decades, visitors have been spray painting the 10 vintage Cadillacs at the site and mulling the transitionary nature of time, as Bruce Springsteen did in his 1980 song of the same name. Then in New Mexico, more than half of Route 66 cuts through sovereign Native American lands, often tracing routes used by tribes long ago before settlers arrived. Much like the railroad in the 1800s, the highway opened the door to a new era of commerce, but also fueled stereotypes about cultures along the way. Then in Arizona, musician Jackson Browne was taking his own road trip in the early 70s when his car left him stranded in Winslow. So the experience inside the lyrics to the Eagles hit, Take It Easy, but it's certainly not the only songs that have a must-have for Route 66 playlist. Bobby Troup created a classic American road anthem in the 1940s with Get Your Kicks on Route 66. Nat King Cole and Chuck Berry, the Rolling Stones, and Depeche Mode carried it through the decades, each covering the song with their own flair. And in California, once a desert oasis, Roy's Motel and Cafe in Amboy is quintessential Route 66 landmark. The towering neon sign is one of the most photographed spots along the route. Inside, foreign currency left by international visitors lines one wall, and across the street, a clothing post decorated with shoes, shirts, and other items just dumped from the desert floor. In Jamestown, a pair of Jamestown men are facing federal drugs and weapons charges. On Thursday, that's last Thursday, U.S. Attorney Michael DiGamico announced a federal grand jury returned a superseding indictment charging Blake Smith, he was also known as Sweets, 50, and Willie Graham, also known as Wu, 45, with narcotics conspiracy, Hobbs Act robbery, kidnapping, use of firearm during a crime of violence, and use of a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking. In addition, Smith is charged with possession of firearms, in furtherance of drug trafficking, and distribution of fentanyl causing serious bodily injury. Both defendants face a maximum of life in prison. Assistant U.S. Attorney Joshua Volante, who is handling the case, stated that according to the superseding indictment between February 17 and January 24, Smith and Graham conspired with Joseph Zazo and others to sell heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine in the Jamestown area. During the conspiracy, Smith possessed a firearm. Between May 9th and 11th, 23, Smith sold fentanyl, causing serious bodily injury to 2 individuals. Then on March 8th and 9th, 23, the defendants kidnapped an individual and robbed that person of $25,000. In furtherance of the robbery, a firearm was brandished. This case is part of Operation Take Back America, a nationwide initiative that marshals the full resources of the Department of Justice to repel the invasion of illegal immigration, achieve the total elimination of cartels and transnational criminal organizations, and protect our communities from the perpetrators of violent crime. Operation Take Back America streamlines efforts and resources from the Department's Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So this is going back to April 13th, which was last Monday. Cassadaga hired a new clerk and deputy clerk. The village found a new clerk with a new deputy clerk at her side. Sue Penhallow will be the new village clerk of Cassadaga, and she has several decades of experience in working with insurance. While Mayor Rudy Ebersold feels prepares her for the role because of her office skills and people skills. Tammy Wushlesk will be the deputy clerk. Wushlesk will also serve the village as beach director. Wushlesk is a former town clerk in Albright. She brings a plethora of clerks' experience to the village, Ebersol said. She's going to be a tremendous asset. And in other news, there's a man faces weapons charges in Fredonia incident. So a 44-year-old who resides in Maryland and South Carolina has been identified and charged in connection with a shelter-in-place order that occurred Wednesday in the village of Fredonia. In a news release issued Friday night, Fredonia Police Department reported that Kyle Denhart, 44, was unwanted, refused to leave a residence, It was possibly in possession of a handgun during the day-long incident that started in the morning and ended around 9 p.m. Members of the Fredonia Police Department responded to the scene and assisted the resident off the property while officers attempted to establish communication with Denhart. Officers from the Dunkirk Police Department, University Police at Fredonia, and the New York State Police responded to assist by establishing and maintaining a secure perimeter. And in other news, Molitor was pushing against personalized handgun safety. State Democrats have recently repurposed legislation that will attempt to require the Division of Criminal Justice Service to study the technology viability of personalized firearms, something that many believe would increase safety. However, the bill has raised concerns for many, including those that represent the Chautauqua County area, who are worried that the bill will lead to limitations on Second Amendment rights. So the legislation, which is titled A1191B, was initially proposed for the session on January 9th, 25, so the bill would proceed to pass the State Assembly on May 25. The bill would die in the Senate. Since the bill was returned to the Assembly, Democrats have been quickly working to get the bill back through to the floor. The bill was able to pass the Assembly again on March 26, and now, once again, on its way to the Senate. The bill advocated for user-authenticated or personalized handguns. These are guns with technological implications that prevent the gun from being fired by anybody beside the authorized users. The bill was initially proposed by Alex Moores, who's a Democrat from New York, who argued that the bill would help to continue to reduce unnecessary gun deaths around the state. Violence from accidental gun discharge causes incredible harm, with more than 300 children unintentionally shooting themselves or someone else each year. In 2020, this resulted in the deaths of over 120 people. Personalized handguns would stop children from being able to shoot guns that are left out or improperly stored. Oh, this sounds like a good idea. This would help prevent school shootings, as well as most shootings have followed the shooter taking the weapon from their or a neighbor's home. Moreover, approximately 380,000 guns are stolen from owners each year. Personalized handguns would prevent these weapons from being used in other crimes or against their owners. This bill creates a sensible regulatory environment to review the safety and viability of personalized smart guns. The past decade has seen significant progress in the technology of these weapons, and this bill ensures that New York State can implement these new safeguards as they become available. That would be a great idea. Okay, let's move on to our local nation. I want to know about Trump's tax breaks for tips, overtime when filing state tax returns. So, as the tax filing deadline nears, millions of Americans are expecting to claim new federal income tax breaks for tips and overtime wages, available for the first time under a wide-ranging tax law enacted by President Donald Trump. But many people won't get those same deductions when they fill out their state income tax forms. That is because it is up to each state to decide whether to match federal tax changes, and many have decided not to do so. In states' taxes that don't conform to the federal tax changes, workers who receive a federal tax deduction for tips or overtime still will owe state taxes on those earnings. The tax filing deadline is Wednesday for the federal government in most states. Here's what to know about state income taxes and deductions. In most states, individuals must fill out two separate tax forms, first the federal income tax form and then the state. And the older matters because most states use figures from the federal tax form as a starting point for the state tax calculations. There's no income tax levied in 8 states, state taxes: Alaska, Florida, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, and Wyoming. Washington state taxes income for capital gains, but not wages and salaries. Well, that'd be nice if they did that in New York. Only half a dozen states are mirroring Trump's law by offering tax breaks on tips and overtime wages, or for loan interest on new vehicles, assembled in the U.S. All three of those tax deductions are available to state income taxpayers in Idaho, Iowa, Montana, North Dakota, and Oregon and Colorado. It offers the tips and auto loan deductions, but not the overtime tax break. Alabama offers only the auto loan deduction. Wow. We really pay a lot of taxes here in New York. So here's for your health. This is Dr. Kenneth Roach. Dear Dr. Roach, I have bad knee arthritis. My doctor suggested a genicular nerve block. Is that a good idea? Will it fix the problem? And then the doctor says, chronic knee pain from osteoarthritis is a common problem in middle-aged and older adults. Before a person receives treatment, the diagnosis should be confirmed by an x-ray. First-line treatments are exercise and anti-inflammatory drugs, like naproxen, which is orally, or diclofenac, which is topically. When first-line treatments are ineffective, there are other options. Knee injections with steroids have long been used, but recent studies cast doubt on their effectiveness and raise concern for damage to knee cartilage. Hyaluronic acid and plasma-rich platelet injections have been shown in recent trials to have only a little bit better than the saline injections, and they were much more expensive. Duclantine, an antidepressant that has pain-relieving properties, is effective for some people, but not everybody. Before considering knee replacement surgery, a nerve block or ablation of the nerves that carry pain information, there are 3 genicular nerves, they can be attempted when an expert is available. There is significant pain relief from this procedure, although the benefit is greatest within a few weeks and generally lessens after 3 to 4 months. About half of these people who got the procedure report being much improved or very much improved afterwards. It is generally safe with a low risk of side effects, and it can be repeated. So another Dr. Roach question. I'm 81 years old and have been diagnosed with my ophthalmologist with age-regulated macular degeneration, the dry type. I was advised to start taking the AREDS S2 eye vitamin and mineral supplement. Shortly afterward, I came across a magazine advertisement for ARED S2, which included a disclaimer from the Food and Drug Administration, in fine print, ironically, that stated the product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, or prevent any disease. So I'm confused. If the over-the-counter supplement doesn't do any of this, then what value is it, and why take it? The disclaimer was easy to overlook and nearly impossible to read. So, Dr. Roach says, you are very wise to look at the disclaimer, and I appreciate you asking me. The FDA requires this disclaimer on all supplements, even though with strong evidence that supports them. I often refer readers to the disclaimer, but I'm trying to give a realistic expectation of the benefit that a person can get from a supplement. In this particular case, however, there is strong evidence that the AREDS and AREDS2 formulation of over-the-counter supplement vitamins and minerals do slow the progression of the dry type of AMD. I agree with your ophthalmologist that it is worthwhile for you to take this formulation. I recommend the AREDS2 formulation for current or former smokers, as the beta-carotene in the original AREDS formulation was associated with an increase in lung cancer risk. I do want to emphasize that you should only take these supplements when your eye professional recommends them. They aren't of proven benefit in people who don't have AMD, nor in people with very early AMD. They are mixed data with prostate cancer risk with vitamin E, which is in both the AREDs and ARED2s formulations. The AREDs trials did not show any increased risk of prostate cancer with these formulations, but a 2011 trial did show a small increase in prostate cancer with the same dose of vitamin E that used in the AREDS trials. Other studies have shown both small protection and no change in risk. Still, before there is a potential for risk, the AREDS supplements should only be taken when prescribed by your regular doctor or your eye doctor. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And in some world news, nation news, in Jackson, Mississippi, the glass panels of the lynching victim's monolith are simple, etched with the names of more than 600 victims of documented racial killings in Mississippi, along with the attackers' motives. The panels are among thousands of exhibits and artifacts inside the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum and the adjoining Museum of Mississippi History, called the Two Mississippi Museums. The massive complex inside of the state capitol is an essential part of the state's American 250-year celebration. That's just the people that we know about. Kamaya Johnson, who was visiting from Monroe, Louisiana, said of the victim panels as she sat beyond the display and fought back tears. Just imagine the ones that we don't. Imagine the ones that never go to be written in history books. Mississippi, warts and all, approach to reflecting its history as part of the state's official commemoration of the nation's 250th anniversary is a stark contrast with what has been taking place at the national level since President Donald Trump returned to the White House in January 25. Easing the discomfort of sometimes brutal American history has been a central theme of Trump's administration. He signed an executive order on his first day back in office, eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the federal government. Then, along with a March 2025 executive order restoring truth and safety to American history, has led to signs being changed at federal parks, exhibits being altered or in some cases removed, and military bases being renamed. Part of the Republican administration's preparations to celebrate the 250th anniversary have included putting pressure on federal institutions, including the Smithsonian, to tell a version of history that is less focused on discrimination and episodes of racial violence. In Mississippi, a temporary exhibit created specifically for the commemoration. Mississippi fills a space that is routinely charged to entice visitors to return, but it is housed in a space where achievement is intertwined with the state's dark past, involving Native Americans, enslaved people, and the Civil Rights era. Nan Prince, director of collections for the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, said the instructions were simple from scholars, politicians, staff members, and civic and civil rights groups when the museums were being conceived and built. Don't brush over anything. Don't whitewash anything, she said. Just tell the truth. We're not going to hide anything. So plans for the museum eventually were combined with a parallel effort to move the State History Museum from the Capitol grounds, with the complex opening in 2017. So the approach to creating a State History Museum was the same: tell the full story, beginning with how Native Americans were removed from the land. We said at the beginnings we weren't going to hide anything, Barber said in an interview, noting that he grew up in an era of segregation. We weren't going to try to justify what was done. That's what the people wanted. To say, look, we're not proud of this, but we're not going to deny it. Other states have made sure to highlight their diversity and their preparations for the 250-year anniversary. The American 250 description for neighboring Alabama includes milestones in the civil rights movement. Mississippi takes its historical heads-on. Its American 250 MS platform says the state's history mirrors the American story, with the removal of Native Americans, making way for slavery, and slavery leading to the Civil War, followed by Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And this is our last one, which was Tuesday, April 14th. Cassadaga shifts their focus on New York Forward Grant. In Cassadaga, the village might be moving forward with a major grant application later this year. It just must not be for what was initially discussed. Following the submission of a proposal from Alex J. Witkowski, President and CEO of Wickco Company, the village board is not ruling out a New York Forward grant submission later this year. District in red and waits on city rate. The North Chautauqua County Water District has lost $102,000 so far this year. It just may not be for, Pecos did not condemn about the figure except to note that the work is still ongoing on the rate that the district buys its water from the city of Dunkirk. The rate is adjusted yearly by City Hall in conjunction with Sonny Fredonia economist Peter Runlet. Paco said he spoke with Randy Woodbury, who runs Dunkirk's water system, as Department of Public Works director about this year's rate adjustment process. He said he didn't figure it would be up or down a lot, Paco said. Water Board member Dave Hazelton wondered if the district and the city should amend their contract to allow for a later rate change date. He stated that according to the current contract, a rate for the year is supposed to be set in the second Tuesday in February. But Dunkirk has never met that deadline. So another business from the Water District Board's April meeting. The bid requests for master's meters have gone out, according to Ellen Vento, the district's executive director. And then we have some seasonal sprucing here. Spring cleaning time is here, and Revitalized Dunkirk Incorporated is ready with its annual community cleanup planned for Tuesday, April 21st, from 12:30 to 4:30 p.m., with a rain date of Thursday, April 23rd. All interested volunteers, individuals, or corporate are welcome. National Fuel, Wealth Enterprises Incorporated, the Resource Center, and local Girl Scouts are some employees and organizations that have participated in more than 10 years a spring cleanup organized by Revitalize Dunkirk. So for the fourth year in a row, the event is in conjunction with National Fuel's Days of Doing, in which employees are given release time to engage in community projects. The Chautauqua County Land Bank will once again assist by loaning equipment from its tool trailer. As in the past, the main areas for trash collection are at the pier and along the waterfront from Main Street Beach to Wright Park. Gloves and bags will be provided. And again, unfortunately, we have some obituaries. Robert Rose Sr., who was 82, passed away April 9th in Erie, Pennsylvania. Edward Ecker, who was 87 at Dunkirk, passed away on Thursday, April 9th. Linda DiPasquale, 64 at Dunkirk, passed away on April 12th. Lucille Ralph, 87, passed away on March 28th. And here's a different article. It's To Your Good Health for Dr. Roach again. And this man says, Dr. Roach, my husband had been suffering from tinnitus, that's a ringing in your ears, for a couple of years now. His primary care physician referred him to an audiologist. He isn't a candidate for hearing aid and has basically been told that there is nothing he can do. There are no treatments available. He has adopted some sound apps on his phone to distract himself from the noise. It was offered antidepressants to help him deal with it, but this is about it. The medical advice that he received also told him not to believe anything he reads about cures, because none has been proven to be effective. He tried acupuncture, and although it made him feel a bit more relaxed, it didn't really help with the ringing in his ears. Some days it's tolerable, and other days he hears a non-stop, high-pitched scream. It never stops, and his quality of life is being severely impacted. I'm ready to ask, is there really nothing that can be done? We recently heard about the new linear device that was cleared by the Food and Drug Administration, but we are hesitant to believe the claims. Can you help shed some light on this for us? So Dr. Roach says, tinnitus is a sensation of sound when there actually is none. Many people describe a ringing sensation, but buzzing and hissing are common. There are two effective treatments for tinnitus. Tinnitus restraining therapy, which includes the use of external sound generation, often for 1 or 2 years, and cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know for sure, but the apps that he was trying might have been based on one or both of these. Tinnitus is usually associated with hearing loss, but if the audiologist didn't feel that hearing aid is appropriate, then your husband was, like many people, inadequately treated. The linear device combines sound therapy and an electrical tongue stimulator for neuromodulation, meaning that it tricks the nervous system into not paying attention to the tinnitus. The 2025 study I found in Nature on the device is a retrospective chart review of 220 patients. Not the most powerful type of study, but it nevertheless did show a significant improvement in over 90% of the participants, and the FDA granted the device de novo approval. Unfortunately, I have read that the device usually isn't covered by insurance. It costs on the order of $4,000 in the United States. Well, I have tinnitus, and I've had it for many, many years, and I have constant ringing in my ears. And I've never ever done anything. I didn't think there was anything you could do for it. So, I just hear the ringing all the time. It's very quiet. So, Dr. Roach, another one. Is this really the doctor writing or an AI? Oh. And the doctor said I never use AI to write any of my columns, so he does them all by himself. Huh. So let's go on to some other news. The Wax Note budget increase of 8.8%. The Westfield Academy and Central School Board of Education members received the fourth and final budget study session from District Business Manager Josh Milquist and District Superintendent Ryan Sikorsky at a recent meeting. Milquist focused on the three-part budget, which includes administration, capital, and program, and reviewed anticipated revenues. He highlighted rising costs, staffing considerations, and a proposed tax levy increase. In administration, the district anticipates total expenses of $2,257,121, which is 10.52% of the total proposed budget. Capital costs are projected at $3,324,410,000, or 15.48% of the total expenditure. My goodness. Costs a lot for school. And let's go on to the Fredonia settles a pool fence case for $10,000. The village of Fredonia is paying a $10,000 settlement over a pool fence. Village trustees were set to authorize Mayor Michael Ferguson to sign the settlement agreement Monday. It was for a lawsuit that was listed only by its index number on the meeting agenda. However, the Observer found that it was a case filed by village residents Mark and Joanne Loyler at 23 over a fence that alleged Fredonia forced them to put around their pool. The Loylers sued the village and its chief code officer, Charles LaBarber. The village issued a permit for the pool's installation in April 2009, followed by a certificate of occupancy upon its completion level months later. At the time, the Loylers claimed their pool was not required to have an enclosure. Instead, the couple utilized a power safety cover. The village contacted the Loylers in June 22 to inquire about the absence of a fence around the pool. By telephone, the barber insisted on the prompt installation of a fence. The fence wound up costing about $10,000. Interestingly, there are plenty of pools surrounding the plaintiff's residence that similarity lack fencing, the Loylers lawsuit stated. The lawsuit also alleged that the Loylers were singled out for their pool due to political pressure from a nearby neighbor. That neighbor, not named, has expressed safety concerns regarding the lack of an enclosure. The $10,000 settlement means Fredonia will not have to answer any of the Loylers' charges at a judge's hearing on the lawsuit. And let's finish today's readings with commentary, and it's by Roland Kidder, who's a Stowe resident. And Roland said, I was brought up in a tradition where normally things were named after national leaders, posthumously, after history had time to judge and evaluate their contribution to society and to the country. For example, the Washington Monument wasn't completed until sometime in the 1880s, long after Washington had died. Similarly, the Lincoln Memorial wasn't opened until 1922, decades after Lincoln's untimely assassination. Our current president apparently can't wait for history to evaluate his impact on our history. Among other things, the Kennedy Center in Washington now bears his name, as well as an airport in Palm Beaches, which set to have the name Trump assigned to it. I'll say this about Donald Trump. He is not coy about trying to attach his name to things. He is right up front about it. The other day, in an offhanded manner, he used the word Trump Strait in place of the name Strait of Hormuz. On that one, I think he may have some insight. He was the one who got it closed by attacking Iran, and it would be fitting that accomplishment were forever associated with his name. I'm not just sure that the Arab or Iranians world would buy into it. But you look back at ancient history, there are, of course, comparisons. The various Caesar and emperors of Rome pasted their names all over the city and around the ancient world. And maybe think of Hadrian's Wall in England. Maybe the wall along the Mexican border should forever be called Trump's Wall. He has certainly been its biggest supporter, and who knows, maybe further hikers will want to follow that wall as they have Hadrian's in the north of England. That brings up another issue, Donald Trump's presidential library. I thought maybe it would be in South Texas along this wall, though now it seems that the skyscraper of Miami with golden arches may become the location. It seems to me that a more logical place would have been Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. There, his golf course, where he has spent more time than any president in history, could have been incorporated into the site. Actually, I don't think President Trump really is concerned much about the location of the library as long as his name is headlined on it. When the famous book about him, The Art of the Deal, was published in 1987, he suggested that no changes be made to it by the author except that the name Trump should be made much larger on the book cover. There has even been some talk that he will try to get an Arch de Triomphe built in his honor near Arlington Cemetery. Others speculate that he wants his image sculpted and granted at Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. If done because there may not be enough space for it at Rushmore, it might have to be sculpted at the nearby Crazy Horse Monument in that state. How it all works out, we don't know. What seems most evident, however, is that the oversized, ill-fitting, garish, giant ballroom to be built next to the White House will definitely have his name on it, unless, that is, it gets torn down by some future president to again reveal the simply majesty of the White House as we used to know it. And again, this was just a commentary by Roland Kidder, who was also still resident. So, Pope Leo, this is another article. Pope Leo says he does not fear Trump and cites the gospel. So aboard the papal plane, U.S.-born Pope Leo pushed back Monday on President Donald Trump's broadside against him over the U.S.-Israel war in Iran, telling reporters that the Vatican's appeal for peace and reconciliation are rooted in the gospel and that he doesn't fear the Trump administration. To put my message on the same plane as what the president has attempted to do here, I think it's not understanding what the message of the gospel is, Leo said. The Associated Press toward the papal name en route to Algeria. And I'm sorry to hear that I will continue on what I believe is the mission of the Church and the world today. History's first U.S.-born Pope stressed that he is not making a direct attack against Trump or anyone else with his general appeal for peace and criticism of the delusion of opponents that is fueling the Iran war and other conflicts around the world. It will not enter into debate. The things that I say are certainly not messages of the gospel is very clear. Blessed are the peacemaker, Leo said. I will not shy away from announcing the message of the gospel and inviting all people to look for ways to build bridges of peace and reconciliation, and looking for ways to avoid war any time it's possible. Speaking to other reporters, he added, I'm not afraid of the Trump administration or of speaking out loudly against them about the message of the gospel, which is what the church works for. We are not politicians. We do not look at foreign policy from the same perspective that he may have. The Pope said, adding, I will continue to speak out strongly against war, seeking to promote peace, promoting dialogue, and multilateralism among states to find solutions to problems. Too many people are suffering today. Too many innocent people have been killed. And I believe someone must stand up and say that there is a better way, he said. Trump said that Leo is not doing a very good job. Trump delivered an extraordinary broadside against Leo on Sunday night, stating he didn't think the U.S.-born global leader of the Catholic Church is doing a very good job, that he's a very liberal person, while also suggesting the pontiff should stop catering to the radical left. Flying back to Washington from Florida, Trump used a lengthy social media post to sharply criticize Leo, then keep it up after deplaning in comments on the tarmac for people. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo, he said. Trump's comments came after Leo suggested over the weekend that a delusion of opponents is fueling the U.S. Israel war in Iran. While it's not unusual for popes and presidents to be at cross purposes, it's exceedingly rare for the Pope to directly criticize the U.S. leader, and Trump's stinging response is equally uncommon, if not so.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book,